What's it like being Asian here in Kansas City? That's a question that I get from a surprising amount of callers who are calling in looking for my help relocating here from Kansas City from all over the country. What's it like being a minority here in Kansas City? Now, in this video, I'm going to go through all of the things that we've experienced as an Asian family living here in the Midwest, and so you can make your decision of whether or not Kansas City would be right for you. First off is the racism. A lot of people will call and ask, have you experienced racism? Have you experienced racism? And I would say overall, I have experienced racism, but it has been relatively mild, at least compared to where I grew up in California, in Los Angeles. Now, there are a lot of people who will come up to me and ask me, hey, where are you from? And I'll answer them, I'm from Los Angeles, California. And a lot of them will say, hey, where are you really from? And I know exactly what they're asking me, right? Then I'll say, okay, my heritage is from Malaysia. My parents are both Malay. They moved to California 4 years before I was born. And I'll explain that. But I'll get a lot of those questions of, where are you really from? This last week, I was sitting down with somebody and they immediately said, hey, I know that you're going to like this. And they pulled out this album of them traveling all over China. And they said, hey, are you from these places? And I said, no, I'm actually from Malaysia. And I really don't take any offense to those types of things. But there are people who will kind of assume that about you here in the Midwest because they don't come across a lot of Asian people. If that's something that's going to offend you and you don't experience that where you're from, you might want to reconsider moving here to Kansas City because the majority here is Caucasian and African American. We're definitely, as Asian Americans, we're definitely a minority here in Kansas City, and you're going to get a lot of people just curious about your heritage, curious about where you're actually from, curious about where you come from. If you're not from the United States, they're going to ask you those questions of, hey, where are you really from? I will say this, the further I get outside the metro, when I get 30, 45 minutes, an hour away from the metro, and I show properties in these small towns, I will get these weird looks. Now, I don't know if these people are looking at me saying, hey, where's this Asian person coming from? We don't have any Asian people in our town, so I'm not sure why this Asian person is here. I don't know if that's the case, but I do experience a lot more weird vibes and weird looks the further outside the metro I get. But anywhere inside the metro, anywhere 30 to 45 minutes around the metro, I typically don't get weird looks. I know that we're still a minority here, but I would say I would not necessarily worry about it. If you're going around the Kansas City metro, people are used to seeing all sorts of Asian people all over the place. Now, if you stick around until the end of the video, my wife and I will both share 2 times where we definitely had interactions that were racist towards us as Asian Americans here in Kansas City. So if you stick around to the end, we're going to chime back in with what we've experienced in terms of racism here in Kansas City. Now, in this type of video, you should know a little bit about me. My parents moved to Los Angeles, California 4 years before I was born. I was born and raised there. I spent about 30 years there. And then I moved here to Kansas City, and I've been here for the past 4, almost 5 years. And so growing up in Los Angeles, California, I had a huge, very diverse group of friends. I would say most of my friends were Caucasian, Hispanic, or African American. I was kind of the token Asian person in our group, and I didn't have a ton of friends that were Asian American. I had quite a few Asian friends. But then later on in life, I went on to pastor at a church that was predominantly Taiwanese American. And so I've kind of had experience both in a predominantly Asian community and in a community that was predominantly not Asian. So I've kind of experienced both, and I've experienced my fair share of racism. I wouldn't say that my experience is any different from any minority growing up in the United States, where you get a lot of people who are just explicitly racist towards you. I've had a lot of people call me Jackie Chan.
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
Have a lot of people use Asian slurs towards me.
Get off my land.
And so that's kind of my experience growing up. And I would say that growing up in California, as compared to here, I can't quantify a large difference of racism that I've experienced. I've experienced racism both there and racism here. Now, another thing too, with this being such a hot button issue, racism in the United States, I don't really want to stoke the fire. I personally have a pretty high tolerance for racist comments.
You're mocking me, aren't you?
I don't really get offended too easily. So when people go and ask me, where are you really from? I don't really see that as racism. I see that as somebody who's genuinely interested in me and my culture, and I take that as a compliment. Now, I know that you watching this may consider that a racist comment, so to each their own, but at least for me, I don't believe that a majority of the time when somebody asks you that they're trying to be overtly offensive or overtly racist, and I take it with a grain of salt.
It's okay, I'm not offended.
As for diversity here in Kansas City, that there are a ton of Chinese people here, there are a ton of Filipinos, Indians, and Vietnamese people here. Now, the reason I'm not giving statistics is because I don't know when you're watching this, but I can tell you anecdotally that we've been here since 2020, really early 2020. And from 2020 till now, as I'm recording this in October of 2023, we've noticed that there's a noticeable uptick in Asians that are out and about when we go take our kids out to different places like Science City, the city market, or out and about where we have out and about in these public places where we interact with a lot of people. As I've been thinking about making this video, and as I've been noticing this, I do notice that there are a lot of Asian American families that live here. I notice that there are more and more Asian families, young Asian families specifically, that are moving here to Kansas City and calling Kansas City their home. Now, I don't know all of their stories. This is just observational and anecdotal, so take this with a grain of salt. The Asian population here is definitely growing, whether by immigration from other countries or by people relocating from a place like California, from places like New York that have a higher density of Asian populations that are considering relocating here to Kansas City because of the affordability or because of the family friendliness. All of those things are factors in terms of why the Asian population here is growing. But again, I don't want to give you hard statistics. You can easily look that up yourself with the Google search. So go ahead and do that if you're concerned about the density of the Asian population in Kansas City at the time that you're watching this. If you're watching this and you're considering relocating here to Kansas City, I moved here in 2020 and I have since become a real estate agent, so give me a call. I would love to relocate you and your family out here to Kansas City. Our family did it and we love it here. 816-4MOVE-KC is how you can get a hold of me. 816-4MOVE-KC. You can call me, you can text me. I also left my email down below, and I would love to talk to you about what it's like living as a minority here in Kansas City. I would love to give you more information about our experiences here. We love Kansas City. We know it's not for everybody though, so if you want to talk to somebody, 816-4MOVE-KC. We would love to help you relocate here. Now, as for places to eat, I would say there are quite a few Asian places around the metro where you can eat. There are places up north and there are places down south. The best authentic Asian supermarket has to be 888 International Market. In fact, let me take you there right now. I'm down in Overland Park at 888 International Market. This is the biggest Asian store, at least that I could find here in the Kansas City metro. There are some other ones, but this is the biggest. So if you want to know what to expect from an Asian market in Kansas City, then we're going to go inside right now. Okay, so I'm inside 888 International Market, and if you told me that I was back in like Temple City or San Gabriel and I was on a shopping trip with my mom and she was making me wait here because she wanted to choose between the best like tofu or soy paste or whatever, I would totally believe you, because you have basically everything here that you would have where I grew up, coming from Los Angeles, going to places like, I think we had like an 88 Ranch Market down there. You have all the same stuff, at least as far as I can tell. Remember, I haven't lived in Los Angeles for 4 years, and I've only come down here one other time, but you have most of the things that I typically recognize in an Asian food store. You can see from the footage that I've got of this place that this place is massive. So if you're looking for like Asian grocery shopping in the city, we have it. 888 International Market is down in Overland Park. So that's one of the things that you're going to want to know, is that proximity wise, there's another market, in City Market, but this is the biggest place that you'll have to shop for your Asian supermarket, Asian store needs. So you're going to want to know this place if you decide to move to Kansas City and you're Asian. You can check this place out. It's huge, it's massive, it's got everything. I don't know about the prices, but this is where you want to go for Asian market stuff. So as you can see, I took a trip to 888 International Market and I got these chips. They're spicy crayfish flavor. You definitely are not getting this at your local 7-Eleven or your local gas station. You've got to make a trip to the authentic Asian markets to get chips like this. And after I film this video, I'm going to devour all these by myself and enjoy them.
You're an animal.
Now I'm going to let my beautiful wife Emily chime in. She is an ER nurse and she has definitely experienced her fair share of racism working in the ER. And I can say that the stories that she tells me are definitely not my experience, but I think as she's dealing with people in the ER, they're not at their best. Obviously, they're sick, they're hurt, and they're probably not thinking about what they're saying. And so here's Emily with her experiences.
Well, I've come home and told Jaylen multiple stories. Some are crazier than others, some not so crazy. One person said, "Wow, how long have you been here for?" And I was like, okay, how long have we been here in Kansas City? How long have I been here at this hospital? And I was like, oh, what do you mean? He's like, well, your English is so good. Well, it is my first language. So that was kind of a funny instance. One time I got an email from my supervisor about a patient complaint. Backstory, like I'm the only Korean, actually only Asian person on staff in the ER at that time. Now we have like 4 or 5 other Filipino nurses in the ER, but back when this complaint happened, it was literally only me in the entire department, and I only worked weekend nights. It's only Friday, Saturday nights, and so I knew that this complaint was, oh, it's me. The complaint was there's like some Asian nurse came into my room and then they did quotations, and it was like, you have urine, or we need urine, you have STD. And that was like in quotes, like the assumption that was like how I said it. And I was like, well, it must have been me because I am the only Korean American nurse that works Friday, Saturday nights. However, I never would have said something like that. And it's like the assumption that I don't speak not perfect, but the assumption that I don't speak proper English, like, we need urine, you have STD. It's like, no, I would have said it like, hey, we'd like to collect a urine sample based on your complaints. So that was kind of weird. Nothing ever came of it. My supervisor trusted me that I would not speak to a patient like that. But that's just an example of like making fun of my speech or my English, and I'm always like, it's my first language, thank you. What are some other instances? Oh, one time a patient asked me what tribe I was from because they thought I was Native American, and I said, actually, I'm Korean, but maybe, I guess there's just not a whole lot of Asian American people in the Midwest. There's a lot of funny assumptions people make.
Let me share a story with you of an experience that I had that was definitely racist. My wife was working at the ER, and so I had my 2 kids on my own, and I decided I was going to take them out to a local park so that they could ride their bike and I could walk my dog. And so one of the people that was and they were riding their bikes, and they're young kids, right? They're 4 and they're 2. They're not riding their bikes very fast. And I remember that there was somebody who was coming up, and this park was a loop. So we had seen this person quite a few times, and the first time my son was kind of a little bit in his way, and it caused him to take his bike around the paved path and then get back on. The first time this person didn't say anything. The second time my son was kind of riding right in the middle of the path, and I think this person was annoyed that my son was right in the middle of the path. And again, he's 4. I probably should have been doing a better job of just directing him to the side of the path. Again, I want to take responsibility where I was responsible, but this person called back and said, hey, Chinaman, make sure your kids don't get in my way again. And he rode off. And so I thought that was kind of rude. Obviously, my kids are just learning how to ride their bikes, and they don't necessarily have the best control over their bikes yet. But again, I have a pretty high tolerance. I actually hadn't thought of this story for quite a long time until I was making this video, and I was trying to think of a time when somebody was overtly racist towards me because I am Asian.